Hello, everybody. Today is the next episode of my Crohn story. I'll be going into my experience moving to Florida and um, go into my first hospitalizations for Crohn's. And this is where things get really real. So I'm going to try and keep it together and communicate fully kind of what happened and what I was going through physically and mentally with everything. So last episode I ended off basically describing the treatment plan with Crohn's and kind of the steroid cycling with new meds and trying those things out. So I tried a couple meds and didn't really work. My doctors put me on steroids, and I moved down to Florida to start high school. And when I moved to Florida, I got a new gastroenterologist, of course. And there was only, I think, one pediatric gastroenterologist on the west coast of Florida. So, he was my doctor, and things started well. I met him, he's a nice guy, and they put me on this medicine called Remicade, which is a biologic drug. So basically what I'd have to do for that was I'd go in every couple months to the hospital. I'd get an infusion, and they would do it so they'd put me on can't remember the anti-allergy thing, but maybe I think Benadryl, and that really knocked me out. And then I'd do my infusion for a couple hours. They had snacks, they had TVs, lounge chairs. It was a pretty pleasant experience as far as infusions go. And when I got started on that, I responded very well to that and started feeling a lot better without steroids. I wasn't able to get better in time to make the soccer teams I tried out for. I was in terrible shape. So since soccer is something that's very important to me and a very social thing for me, it's a good way for me to meet people. I started kind of with rec soccer, and then I was kind of clearly a level above that and got recruited to club teams where I'd travel. So I was able to kind of rectify that situation fairly quickly and meet some people and be active, which was really nice because the year before was not very active. So the first couple of years in Florida did well. My freshman and sophomore year of high school were good. Even though I was pretty shy, it was, I was able to make some friends through soccer and, some other things. Nobody quite as close as my friends from New York, but those were friends since childhood, so it was a little different. So yeah, I was in Remicade for those first 2 years and all good. At one point, my doctor died, which was kind of out of the blue, it was not expected. And I got a different gastro. Somebody moved to the area because there weren't any pediatrics. And he was Dr. W, an extremely long name, so his is Dr. W. Very nice guy. And with him, I continued on Remicade, and up until right before my junior year, I was doing well. I can remember specifically when things started going wrong. It was the 4th of July. My family had friends who had kind of a beach condo. So we went out there to watch fireworks on the beach. And I just remember being miserable, must have had a fever. I don't remember if I measured it, but yeah, it was pretty easy to tell. And it was worrisome. It was the first time, I think, since I'd been on my new meds, since I felt that way. And I think things happened pretty quickly from then. I think I started school feeling pretty miserable. Um, and then eventually really went downhill. Um, I think I would remember going to the doctor's office, and I couldn't sit down for more than a couple minutes just because I'd be in so much pain. I'd have to lie down. Um, I I remember one experience at the doctor's office. I can't for the life of me remember specifically what was going on at the doctor's. Probably gave me some steroids. Talked about maybe switching treatments. And when I left the doctor's office, my mom went to go pick up the car because I couldn't walk to the car, and I laid down on the floor of the lobby of the building my doctor's office was in, and like I wasn't all right, but like I was. It's like I wasn't dying or anything, but like I felt horrible, and I was literally lying on the floor, and some lady like gets out the elevator, walks right past me. She sees me, just walks right past me, just does nothing. And I was like, I'm okay, lady, but like you see somebody on the floor like keeled over in pain, and you're just like, yep, that's normal. I'm just gonna just mind my own business. That just blew my mind. I remember being stunned. um so yeah, I kind of things went on being fairly miserable for a while. I had a lot of really bad cramps. I really fatigued, which is pretty normal when I'm sick. Appetite was in the gutter. Um, and I had really bad fevers, really, really bad fevers. I think the first time I went to the hospital was because my fever was like 104. It was insane. And I would take Tylenol, and it's just nothing. Um, yeah, I remember going to the hospital and doing a very similar thing. Like just lying down in the lobby just because I couldn't just sit up straight. I would be in so much pain I'd just get nauseous if I did that. Like even lying down, I'd be similar, but it would be a little bit easier to take. Um, yeah, so that was actually my first hospitalization for Crohn's, and that was very unpleasant. I think I was there for a little over a week, and I remember my pain scales from then. Generally, where I kind of put my pain was around 6 or 7, and 7 is kind of the threshold for like being in enough pain to be nauseous from it, which is pretty impressive because there's still 3 levels to go. But yeah, I'd say I had a pretty impressive pain tolerance at that point. Um, so I went to the hospital for a week, felt miserable, and then they put me on Humira, which is another biologic drug. It's used for rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm sure if you've ever watched TV, you've seen a million commercials. So I started on that, and then I went home. I was feeling better, and then right before it was time to take another dose of Humira, I started having a fever. Now, this was a problem because fevers are a Crohn's symptom, but there can also be a sign of infection. And the problem with that is Humira is a immunosuppressant drug because Crohn's is a autoimmune disease. The concept of medicines that they give you are medicines that suppress your immune system so it stops attacking itself. So I had this fever. It could have been from Crohn's. It could have been from the infection. We didn't want to take a risk that I had an infection, so we stopped the Humira, and things went downhill pretty quick. I definitely got up to 104 again, and I don't know if that was the straw that sent me to the hospital for the second time, but I wound up there pretty quick. And when I was in the hospital, we basically just searched for an infection, um, and it was frustrating. I remember being very annoyed because um, they would test for some things and then get the results back negative and then send more tests. Um, like every day was agonizing. It was horrible. Um, so it really felt like there was quite a bit of wasted time. And like, okay, like these things aren't positive. Let's test more things. It's like, why didn't we test those things along with the other things? I don't have that kind of time. Every day sucks. In hindsight, like now that I know how common a symptom fever is with my Crohn's disease, I never would have spent this long looking for an infection. Um, but that's, at that point I didn't know better. And we looked and we looked and we looked, and I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Um, I was around 7, 8 on the pain scale a lot of the time because of my cramps, and had fevers constantly, and I couldn't eat a thing. Um, and eventually it got so bad um, that I couldn't eat, and I was losing too much weight. So what the doctors did was they had me put a PICC line in. A PICC line is a special IV um, where they pretty much put it just in your arm and thread it all the way up your artery to a main valve. And that way they can, kind of put a lot of stuff in you, and they don't need to change it. They just change the dressing every so often. So they put that in, and then they put me on TPN, which is basically IV food, because I couldn't eat. And getting a PICC line was a horrible experience. I definitely had a fever. I was sweating. I was extremely anxious. I was in a lot of pain, in my abdomen, and you know, you can feel, the threading of the IV up your arm, and it was just, with everything I was feeling at that point, the combination of things was awful. It was very scary too. And those two nurses who put the PEC line in were from the ICU, and they could tell I was really bad. I want to say a couple days later, maybe, I had the worst pain I've ever had. I put it at a 9, which is about as high as I'll go. Don't think I've been to 10 before. It was unbelievable, and I was careful about how much I asked for pain meds, and that was one. It was like, I need this now. I was it was screaming pain. Yeah, it's unimaginable now how bad that was. I've been in a lot of pain since, but that was on another level. And one of the things I discovered was the pain meds they gave me. At that point, they were giving me Toradol, which is like IV Motrin. It's really not that great for people with Crohn's because it is a blood thinner, so I can bleed more. But that stuff, that was pretty good. To knock that down from how high it was to enough for me to actually sleep was pretty impressive. I want to say that the next day, I was my parents were there. My mom was always with me. My dad and brother visited, and I think 2 of my friends were there too. And with all those people there, the doctor and the surgeon came in, and they told me that I had a perforation and that I was septic. I think that's the word. Where basically there was this free fluid, in my abdomen, and I had to have emergency surgery, and I was gonna have an ostomy. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's when you cut a hole in the abdomen and stick the intestine out because you can't attach it to the other end. And you have a bag for that. That was really the least of my concern at that point in time. I didn't realize how bad that was. Like, every single day was so bad. It didn't really strike me. I was just living it. I was just getting through the days, and then like the pain was worse, but it didn't hit me how dangerous of a situation I was in at that time. Because I remember when they told me this, they were very serious about it, and I remember seeing my parents' faces and my friend's face and my brother's face, and I've never seen my parents so concerned, ever. I thought it was more at the time them feeling bad that I was having to go through all that. But now I realize more that they were scared for my life. I don't know if it was the fact that I was just so caught up and just fighting it, or if it was like that I was just dazed from being under that amount of pain for that long, or if it was the pain meds that zoned me out, or I don't know. Yeah, I think I was the only person in that room that didn't really get how bad that was. I remember basically all I had to say was, if that's what we need to do to make me better, then let's do it. Because I felt really horrible at that time, and yeah, if surgery was what's needed, to make that go away, then let's go. Yeah, no, looking back at that, that's I think every time I look back at it, I think I'm feeling the things I didn't feel then, where it's facing death like that, because I didn't process it then. I was in fighting mode. There was no time, yeah. So I'm proud that I didn't die, but it's scary to know how close I got. Yeah. And I had the surgery, and I was definitely not out of the woods yet. I still had a lot of fighting to do after that. And I think I'll get into that in the next one. This is kind of already a lot, and I want to be able to communicate fully what was happening after I got through surgery and wound up in the ICU. So yeah, that was that was my first surgery. That was my first hospitalizations. They were very traumatic. But they're things I made it through, and I'll come back and tell you how I did that, and what I've gained from that since. Next time. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.